and General Counsel of InvestaX. Sanjay, a partner and CSO of Global Accelerated Ventures. Vikram, Bharati, founder and Draper Startup House, and Giampaolo, Parigi, chairman of the family office and venture capitalist. And my name is Nadia Nisirova. I'm an independent director of the board of the National Alternative Investment Management Association and an independent advisor to a number of general partners in private equity, venture capital, hedge funds, and real estate. And I pass the floor to my colleague today, co-moderator Sony Mahanti. She's the regional director of La Token in Singapore. Hello, Sony, please join us.
Hi, Nadia. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Myself, Sony Mahanti. I'm the regional director of La Token based in Singapore. I would like to welcome you, everyone, for yet another session of VCTV. I would like to start the evening by introducing our keynote speaker. So the first speaker we have tonight is Sanjay Vatsa. So Sanjay is currently a partner and mentor of Princeton Growth Accelerator and a partner and chief strategy officer of Global Accelerated Venture. Sanjay is also an active angel investor and advisor to firms and late stage startups, where he provides innovative and disruptive solutions in healthcare, fintech, cryptocurrency, and blockchain. Okay, thank you so much, Sanjay, for your time today. I'm passing the floor over to you to start, give your presentation, please. Thank you. You're on mute, Sanjay. Sanjay, you're on mute. Yeah.
I'm unmuted right now, right? So
yes, please. Now it's better. Yeah.
So I just go to the temperature to the slides. Okay, so my name is Sanjay Vatsa. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak today, and I appreciate it. I think this is a great panel, and I hope I look forward to learning from all of you, but I look forward to sharing some of my experiences. So I'm a person who has spent 25 years in corporate life, in C-level executives and leading companies like BlackRock, State Street, founder of Capco. And over the last 5 years, I decided that I would be more of an entrepreneur, investor, and a disruptor. In all my life, I've disrupted. So right now I'm disrupting in 3 industries: healthcare, energy, and fintech. I don't like to call it fintech. I like to talk it tech fin because we're applying technology to finance, not finance to technology. And I think that's a very big mind shift, because I have a word known as innovation obesity. And what has happened over the last few years is a lot of technology has come out, which has been trying to search for pain points or business pain points. So you have to have a business-centric point of view, what pain points to solve and what models to disrupt. We created Global Accelerated Ventures about a few years ago, and we are doing a lot of work, but we all believe in 2 things. I believe in one thing: perfecting people's ownership and private assets. So how do you perfect it? By giving them all the information so that they can trade their private assets and they can create a liquidity pattern as and when they want, and the alpha generation as they want. And we also believe in financial inclusivity through democratization of alpha. So now you know where I'm going towards. I'm going towards that public assets, and I'll talk about the white space in a few minutes. This is a NASDAQ chart that shows that security tokens, the death of utility tokens have happened. I'm not a firm believer of utility tokens because they're not asset backed. So I believe in the aspect of security token, and this is a NASDAQ chart saying that this is going to grow phenomenally well. Now, we can argue the numbers, but I'll tell you this: with COVID happening, blockchain-based capabilities that allow business models to evolve and new disruptive business models to come in is basically in vogue today. So I always tell people the sun is setting 5 times a day today. It's no more 2025 and 26 that things will happen. It will happen in 2020, 2021, 22. So what do I mean by democratization of alpha? So what we mean by democratization of alpha is basically enabling this white space. So if you look at the white space today on private assets, only a few people can invest, but there's no liquidity, and it's a closed loop in liquidity. Our goal is that through democratization of alpha, by creating a tokenization platform end to end, just like in the public markets, you can trade them, you have got intelligence, you can trade them, you can settle them, and then the investor can decide to do whatever they want to do to perfect their ownership. The same thing should happen on the private asset side. So we want the mass affluent and retail also to become participants in this space, but we want these tokens to be listed in the marketplace. So there has to be price discovery and price transparency. To do that, you need to create a liquidity element so that if I want to get out in 2 years from a private asset, I can, and I can trade it at the market value. So I'm actually connecting the asset value to the underlying investor, but distancing the optimization of the asset value as and when it's what's right to do with the asset value, and for the individual investor when they can optimize their return. So I'm disconnecting the two, but I am connecting the two as it relates to valuation. So this is what we talk about, supply chain financing, equity, private companies, debt offering. World Economic Forum just came out with a note that for supply chain to get re-energized in the marketplace, you require blockchain. And I'll talk about that a little bit. So we talked about stable coins, specialized coins, commercial real estate, but the security token, which is a new asset class, is coming in fast and furious. Our focus areas, we build venture studios, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Offline we can do that, but venture studios are basically, we do an inside out and outside in process. So what we do is, so for London Stock Exchange, we are setting up a venture studio very specifically to get them to evolve to a disruptive business model. I'm also an advisor to them for Refinitiv deal that they did with London Stock Exchange. But the point is, data is a new oil, but unless I don't get intelligence and wisdom out of it, it's not going to work. So I created a one-page document as to how they need to evolve to the next level. And it was all to do with private asset, tokenization, creating a marketplace and everything. This is our portfolio in development, the 5 things we focus on, and we'll talk about that, during the question and answer session. But anyone wants to know it, they can always reach out to me. But I want to talk about 2 companies, and one is the Invenium Capital Partners and TallyX. TallyX is the first blockchain-based deep tier supply chain financing capability in the world today. We're in active discussion in Dubai with the Sheikh, with India and everywhere else. But what this is, you create a procurement alpha by financing the complete supply chain. You reduce risk by 50%, and the corporates, we are shifting the focus from banks to corporates, where corporates actually as buyers can make procurement alpha. And the Invenium Capital Partner is the first, probably the first generation blockchain company that has been able to do valuation on commercial real estate and move on from level 3 to level 2 asset. What does that mean? That means they are tradable. They are listable and tradable. Now, we've already done about $500 million of valuation on Invenium Capital Partners, with another $10 billion to be done by the end of the year. Now, COVID has affected the pace of that, but this is the first step towards price discovery and price transparency for a private asset on a consistent basis that gets priced every week, so that there is complete transparency to the end investor. As a result of it, it becomes tradable, and there's a market price set for those. So we have actually worked with SEC and FASB on 57 on the commercial real estate side. We also can do thinly traded munis. So any private asset, and this is the first step towards it. On GAV, these are our associations. So we have also partnered with Oxford and Stanford to create a conservatory studio. So this is all on conservation and energy and ESG elements relating to it. Our partnerships are huge, as you see, Qatar, Johannesburg, London Stock Exchange, and through London Stock Exchange, they're connected to 20 other exchanges. Synchron has been a partner. We have created a venture studio with them. So our goal is, we want to democratize alpha. We want to bring the white space, the people who are in the white space, into the system, the financial inclusivity. And of course, we always end with a globe where we are based, and it's a great day. Let's start something big, and that's what we believe in. And it's something big, but something that is doable. We don't want to talk about things that are not doable. So I think blockchain is now going to happen. It's the 5th disruption that's going to disrupt humankind, and it's happening now. For a long time, blockchain was associated with Bitcoin, and a lot of people gave blockchain a bad name, but a lot of interesting use cases, and I talked about 2 use cases here, are coming out that is going to solve the problem of the full tokenization of private assets anywhere in the world. And that's what going to be the biggest. Private assets are $350 trillion in the world. Public assets are only 75 to 80 trillion. So you can look at the opportunity size. And with that, I will turn it over. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thanks. That was a fantastic presentation from Sanjay. So the next speaker we have is Alice Chen. She is the co-founder and general counsel for InvestaX. InvestaX is a MAS licensed platform offering end-to-end solutions for the primary issuance, fundraising, and lifecycle management of digital securities in the private securities market, specifically private equity, real estate, and venture capital. Over to you, Alice, for your presentation. Thank you.
Thanks for having me here. Let me just share my screen. I only noticed that we had to do, or we could do a presentation, so bear with me.
Always.
All right. Thank you for that great presentation, Sanjay. I think a lot of what you said resonated with me and what our company does. So just by way of background, I'm an attorney by training, and I started InvestaX about 5 years ago, initially as a real estate crowdfunding platform based in Singapore, which was licensed and has a broker-dealer license. Then about 2.5 years ago, we really started looking at blockchain technology and tokenization and wanted to understand what and how it can improve the whole democratization of access to capital and alternative assets. So as I said, we're currently based in Singapore. We launched about 5 years ago, and we have a broker-dealer license in Singapore, currently under application for a recognized market operator, which is the equivalent of an ATS, an exchange license to trade tokenized securities. And I just want to clarify that Sanjay actually said security tokens, and when I reference digital securities, they actually mean the same thing. We just prefer the use of digital security as it's in my lawyer training is coming now. In the Securities and Futures Act, it actually doesn't reference securities, whether it has to be on paper or digital. So just for clarification, we call it digital securities. And what we're focusing on, as Sunny mentioned, are alternative assets such as private equity and real estate and venture capital. So InvestaX provides integrated solutions. We do primary issuance, which includes the technology to tokenize securities, lifecycle management, and custody, all on one platform, and soon to come a secondary market based in Singapore. And as many of you know, if you trade public stocks, the public markets actually seem to work pretty efficiently. That's because most of us don't really see the inner workings of the central depository and how records are reconciled and trades are reconciled behind the scenes. Yet there is still a T+2 or T+3 settlement period. And in the private markets, we like this slide because largely there's been very little innovation. And so, as Sanjay said, we'd like to bring more of that technology to the capital market space. And we believe, just like Sanjay, that everything that you can currently enjoy in the public markets can be brought to the private markets. What we know from the private markets, if you have a fund or if you have a private equity fund or real estate fund, those are typically inaccessible to the majority of people. I do have to clarify, at the moment, our platform is for accredited investors and institutional investors. And that's, as we start, we do want to extend that to more retail access. But as this whole space is still very new, we do think that there has to be an adoption period. So currently we offer all of our services to accredited investors and our investments to accredited investors and up. And we also know the typical, typical problems related to the private markets. There's lack of transparency, the amount of paperwork and back office admin that's required to complete a transaction and to facilitate a secondary trade. So we're trying to improve all of those challenges. And I think most of you on the panel would also know that in the private markets, the biggest challenge is really the fundraising challenge. It's time consuming, and it requires a lot of fund managers to focus on fundraising rather than focusing on actually managing the assets, especially on real estate. And we talk to a lot of real estate partners who say there could be some misalignment in the current existing compensation structure, where it's a 2 and 20 split, where managers might be incentivized to sell the best assets first so they meet that hurdle. So a lot of these issues, plus one of the biggest challenges is the illiquidity factor, which Sanjay also mentioned earlier. And our solution is to provide these assets in a digital form so that they can be traded more easily and offer the transparency and access that has never been available in the past. So some of these, I guess, advantages can be seen here. You can, obviously, there's enhanced liquidity once you create a digital security, whether that's over the counter or on a dedicated marketplace like the secondary market that we're creating. It just provides more liquidity options. You no longer have to hold to a 5-7 year term. And there's also that aspect of the illiquidity discount that is very often have to be factored in when you want to exit a project early. Obviously better management and also transparency and faster settlement. These types of instruments are basically any type of securities products. It can be fixed income, it could be structured products, it could be bond issuance. We're currently working with clients who want to do a bond issuance on the blockchain, fund structures, or it could be a economic interest, which then has a lot of benefits because then you don't have to go back to the cap table and reconcile that. Yes, so these are some examples. I have a lot of slides here, so I'm just gonna skip through some that are not really relevant. Some of the case studies that we've done working with private banks on how they can create a system for their high net worth clients to trade in and out of their positions. And one of the interesting things that we're actually developing right now is a digital ESOP. So these are obviously lots of tech companies offer them, but it's a way to incentivize employees in all companies. And with a digital ESOP, you can now reward daily tasks rather than have a long vesting, and it can vest on a daily basis. So there's a lot of things you can do with that. You can trade them, and you can build a lot of different functionalities that you couldn't do with the traditional ESOP. Those are just some examples of some of the projects we've worked on. And we offer, as I said, end-to-end services for any companies that want to do a digital security offering, including secondary trading. I think that's about it. I didn't want to take too much time. So if-
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Alice. Thanks for that presentation, very informative. So we move to our next speaker, So we have Giampaolo Parigi, who is a London-based venture capitalist, merchant banker, serial entrepreneur, board member and chairman of a single family office with nearly 30 years of international track record on the primary and secondary market. Giampaolo, over to you. The floor is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sonny. Thank you, everyone. Welcome here. Today, I will speak about Tokenize International, which is the first fully regulated tokenized securities exchange. And why have I taken this case? Because we would like to discuss about the benefits of operating in a regulated environment under blockchain distributed ledger options. And there are various debates in the market whether or not the regulation in such an innovative sector is conducive to better and greater opportunities of business for everyone. And there are various opinions, both from the professionals, the entrepreneurs, and the general public. I, for one, want to say that although I'm a liberal, and so I believe in the self-regulating mechanisms of a market economy, I do believe that when it comes to certain specific areas, regulation is a good thing to have, and particularly when it comes to financial activities and investments or the healthcare sector. I think a modicum of regulation is necessary. And we've seen also right now the first two illustrious colleagues that have presented platforms that are marking the trend is evolving towards more regulated frameworks and the operation systems, because I think this is in a nutshell what the investment markets need for two reasons. First, because large investors, what we call the institutional investors and the quasi-institutional investors, so everyone from a sovereign wealth funds to an insurance company, a bank, and the venture capital funds, investment funds, mutual funds, and even single family offices. So those big groups of investors that move trillions on any given year need the peace of mind and the reassurance to be able to leverage and adopt even innovative systems and technologies, but they also need as I say, the comfort and the peace of mind to adopt those technologies and those opportunities with the protection that comes from having a regulated environment. Otherwise, the trading volumes we've seen in a lot of experiments also on cryptocurrencies, for example, have not been very, very successful. At the end of the day, there will be always resistance on the investor side if the regulatory control is not there. And this is for the institutional and quasi-institutional, but also the retail market needs even more control and protection, because obviously the retail investors are the ones that are more exposed to the possibilities of being deprived of their capital or incurring losses that are not legitimate because of fraud, misappropriation, and different other illicit or borderline activities. So this company, Tokenize, that I have the privilege to assist as lead advisor, has shown one of the forward path by utilizing blockchain as a mattress, as a platform on which the whole system resides. And blockchain per se, let's remind all of us, it's a means to an end. I mean, it's only valid in a sense and in the way that we can find a good use for it. And one of the good use for it is definitely applied to the infrastructure and the grid of a securities exchange. I think it's one of the environments in which blockchain provides the best of its good merits. Now, capital markets are changing today because there's a concept which is financial inclusion, which is not actually inclusion at all for the vast majority of the people in the world. And when it comes to accessing capital markets for a vast part of the world population that are living in frontier countries or emerging markets, that there's still a long way to go for these people and entities in these people to be able to access the capital markets as we know them today. So talking about financial inclusion, it's good, but we should not remain just at the lip service level of this notion. We should try and implement actions that can provide actual financial inclusions. And one of these possibilities occurs through a regulated platform like Tokenize International, because on this platform, every issuers and every traders can place and work with small increments that are normally unconceivable on the normal traditional regulated stock exchanges. Here we're talking about really from even $1 upwards of token unit values, which is, as I say, simply unthinkable in the contemporary traditional stock exchanges. So, and we know, and also Alice before and Sanjay have elaborated a little bit on the resistance of the incumbents to open up to the new technologies, and as a result, there's a bottleneck that's created in the capital market, where the traditional securities exchanges are only catering to a portion of the most affluent and, I'd say, most fortunate part of the geographies, but and everyone else is de facto left outside. With the adoption of new technologies, and as I say, in a comfortable and regulated environment, we can overcome these difficulties and these obstacles and open up really the process of investing and trading to everyone. So what Tokenize basically does is securities stock exchange. It's based in the Barbados, and it's part of a larger group with a holding company in Gibraltar and a regulated entity, an investment bank in London. What we do with this exchange is, as I say, opening up the market to issuers that could be just as well the large cap traditional issuers, both from the strategic market or from the financial market that are already listing on traditional stock exchanges. But moreover, we also open up the game for small and medium-sized enterprises from all over the world. So not only the developed economies, but also, as I say, the emerging economies. And more importantly, not only to the issuers, but also to the actual investors that can access, via the process of tokenization of the assets that are listed on the stock exchange, basically tokens of these assets in a way that was virtually inconceivable until a few years ago. So this is, I think, it's a great result, and a great merit goes to the founder of this structure and this organization, Michael Kessler, who's a really visionary entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur, and like myself, a former investment banker that has decided to put a lot of his money where his mouth was, and created such a venture and funded the venture entirely from pre-launch to pre-Series A from his own family. The venture has a phenomenal board of directors, including a former London AIM General Director, Martin Graham, and other important professionals from the investment banking and accounting and legal backgrounds. Basically, the asset classes that can be issued and traded on the exchange and the Barbados that tokenize are intellectual property rights, private equity, and fractional ownership of various background and legitimate origin, like airplanes, ships, real estate. But let's go a little bit through the motions of each single asset classes and see what are the benefits. Well, the first one, royalties. I think that this is an innovation in overall perspective, and under the lay of the land, as I say, IPRs are not possible to be listed on any stock exchange of the traditional lot. Anything from royalties deriving from motion pictures, from songs, from books, could be tokenized and listed on this exchange in the Barbados. Of course, this creates an entire new class of issuers that could be rock stars, movie stars, writers, conference speakers, keynote speakers, and also bloggers, and anyone that has in general a wide audience and a wide group of followers, because obviously the advertising income that derives to all these people, or the royalty income that derives to all these people from their own activities, could be securitized via the tokenization of their intellectual property work and transformed into portions of investment that can be underwritten around the world, not only by institutional traders, but also by regular, small mom and pop investors in a level and in a way that was unprecedented before. So this is the first group that will open up a new perspective of business for a lot of people that are looking to be included into the possibilities of leveraging over their intellectual property accumulated, produced over the years, over the decades, or even yet to be produced in the oncoming years. The second large group of issuers is represented by anybody that has significant private equity portfolios, looking for a secondary market in which to divest, a sort of a funnel that would vacuum clean from the ledger of these investors and expose these possible investments to a wide audience in a regulated environment. So not only in a compliant environment, but also in a regulated environment, which is again what institutional and quasi-institutional investors are looking for, to be able to commit substantial amounts of capital in a way that is not only compliant, but also regulated and conducive to obtaining optimal results. And you can imagine the possibilities of tokenizing not only companies, but also assets or portions of these assets, like buildings, can be subdivided into tokens. The beautiful thing with the tokens is that these tokens represent electronic units of your underlying asset, and they are inserted in your digital wallet if you're the investor. And if you happen to, for some reason, lose or have a technical problem related to your digital wallet, what happens is simply that these units are canceled and new units will be reissued to you. So it will protect also against fraud, hacking, and as I say, simple loss. So I think it's a very good all-encompassing approach that protects the investors long after they have invested. A fractional ownership on a lot of assets also can be listed here, and as I say, there's many possibilities for this. We are using, just as an example, one such star, Rihanna, and we just use her as an example because she's from Barbados, and Rihanna's got about 80 million followers. If Rihanna were to securitize all the income that she derives from the activities related to her business that has about 80 million followers, you could see the earnings potential not only for her as an issuer, but also for her followers, because if even only 1% of her followers were to decide to trade on her intellectual tokenized property, you would see that the numbers are quite alluring, intriguing, and not only for the issuer, but also for the participator in groups or entities in the market. So everybody has a benefit, and the market itself, of course, derives revenues and greater potential. There are several revenue generation streams. Our fellow speaker, Sanjay, mentioned a while ago, like these new markets now are markets that are in the trillions of dollars in terms of total market size. So I will not elaborate further about the, I would say, intuitive potential that exists in the market for companies like Tokenize that have been, as I say, prepared in a fully compliant manner. And the company now is in a Series A, raising 15 million on evaluation that there's going to be 50 million. And as I say, until now, it's been funded over 2.5 rounds entirely by the founders. So I think this is one of the greatest demonstration that by going in a regulated environment, the possibility to attract capital in a, I would say, coherent manner on a win-win basis exists for companies that go through the ordeal, through the eye of the needle of making themselves compliant with what not only the law prescribes, but also what the markets really desire and want. This is just, the management of Tokenize. You see Michael Kessler, the founder, and Martin Graham, chairman and former London AIM director. And there's a number of other very good professionals on board. So, I mean, if you have any questions regarding, the benefits of a regulated environment position, I'd be happy to answer your questions on this company and also more in general. Thank you so much. Back to you, Simon.
Thank you, Giampaolo. That was a great presentation. So the next speaker that we have is Vikram Bharati. He's a founder of Draper Startup House International. Vikram founded Tribe Theory in Singapore in 2018, which was later rebranded to Draper Startup House in early 2020 after an investment from the Silicon Valley investor, Tim Draper. Vikram, over to you, and the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you. You got my name right. That's awesome. Okay. All right. Let me see if I can share my screen here. I might actually be having the same problem as someone else on this panel. But you know what? Okay. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Let me see if this works here. Share. All right. Well, it's not working, so apologize for that. Well, maybe I'll tell you a little bit of a story then. Seems like we have a lot of esteemed colleagues here, ex-bankers, lawyers, which is great. I used to be at one point in time, a corporate banker. In 2014, I took a sabbatical. At the time, I was working at JP Morgan in Los Angeles, working with a lot of the publicly traded biotech companies and semiconductor companies, helping them raise capital, etc. And I decided to take a sabbatical and go backpacking in South America for 6 months. So I did that, did a lot of hitchhiking and couch surfing. It was amazing. And what was supposed to be 6 months ended up being 2 years of me traveling around the world and meeting awesome people. And that's what led me to Singapore. I met a girl while I was traveling, fell in love, and she happened to be living in Singapore. So I moved to Singapore. We're married now, and we have a daughter. I've been here for 4 years. And when I moved to Singapore, I was kind of broke. I ran out all my money traveling for 2 years. So I got a job, and the job was running a small venture capital fund here. Most of the capital was from Japan, from Japanese entrepreneurs. And my job was to run around Asia finding early stage startups who had very interesting founders and invest into their businesses. So I did that for a while. I ended up doing about 10 investments in companies in Malaysia, Philippines, Japan, India, etc. And I pitched an idea to the fund that we should build a new category of tourism called entrepreneurial tourism. And what I meant by that was when I was backpacking around the world, all the places, all the hostels, all these places I stayed in were focused purely on travel and tourism. And I just felt these spaces could be used for a lot more than just pub crawls and city walks. And so they liked the idea. They wrote me a check and asked me to build a prototype, which I did. A month later, the prototype was open, and it was a startup hostel in Singapore, and all these amazing entrepreneurs from all around the world were coming and staying there and meeting folks and getting investments, and so there was magic happening. And so then we expanded further. We put up a space in Bangalore, which is sort of like the Silicon Valley of India. We put up a space in Bali. We're capturing all these digital nomads who were, working on great blockchain ideas and whatnot. And after a year and a half of that, I got a call from Tim Draper, whom I kind of knew of, but I had never met him. He asked me if I could fly out to San Mateo, where his office is, and he loved what we were doing. And if you know Tim, he's a big believer in Bitcoin and blockchain and disruptive technologies. And I was very surprised that he was interested in my business, which was a hospitality business. But he saw that what we were doing was business model innovation, as opposed to sort of technology innovation. And what we were doing was taking this old school hospitality business and repurposing it for something very, very different. So our spaces are not only a place for you to come and sleep if you're a sort of a young backpacker, but it's a place for you to come, get an education, raise capital, build businesses, meet other people, work on their ideas, and essentially create these networks around the world. And that has a lot of sort of similarities to blockchain, etc. So he invested in us. We became part of the Draper startup ecosystem. And now we have spaces in 10 countries around the world. The goal is to have these spaces in every major city in the world in the next 10 years and build a new category of hospitality. And so what we do on top of the hospitality is we have a ventures business where we help all the startups coming through our spaces raise money, and we syndicate deals globally. So the first preference goes to the Draper Venture Network, which has 23 funds around the world, and also Tim's main fund, Draper Associates. We send a lot of good deals to them. But the goal is to use these physical spaces, very similar to how I think some of you folks are from the US, sort of like Capital One is now building these cafes or sort of banking centers around the world, which are physical spaces, but they do capture a lot of the customer service aspect of the business, and then build a layer on top, which is a global investment syndicate. And so that's what we're doing. We're very excited. If you are fundraising, I saw one of you are fundraising, feel free to join our network. Maybe it's something we could put in front of one of the Draper Venture Network funds or whatnot. So yeah, that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm sorry, it's not as blockchainy as you wanted it to be, but it's got some relevance, I suppose.
It's disruptive.
Thank you, Vikram. I have a lot of questions for you later. We'll take the questions later, but I like the 2 years backpacking trip idea. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker we have is Alessandro, who is going to fill in for Alan Tolenti, the CEO of Tower Dust. Alessandro, over to you with your introduction. Because
okay.
Yeah.
I open my presentation so I can share with you.
Sure.
No, I have another problem.
You're still having issues with the sharing?
I have a problem with, I have the presentation, but I don't know why.
So when
if I click on share screen, I see desktop one whiteboard, but you give me.
Do you see desktop one? Just click on desktop one. You might have the presentation there.
I click on it, but okay, no.
Yes.
It's open.
So have you saved your presentation in the Word documents or desktop, or where have you saved your presentation?
On the desktop.
Okay, so when you do
why,
scale,
because Zoom tell me about the system preferences, I don't know why.
Can you send it to one of us and we can then display it?
yes, so in the meantime, we can take some questions from other speakers. Can you send the file to here? Can you share it publicly here in the chat?
Or
That's
just send it to the WhatsApp group or something.
Okay,
Yes.
I tried
Yeah, send it to
to
WhatsApp
share
group,
in the chat. Okay.
Or in the WhatsApp group. That's going to work. While you're doing that, let me take some questions from other speakers. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. So while Alessandro is trying to figure out how to share the file, I have some questions, because the reason is I have founders and startups who ask me this question, like they want to do a fundraise using the STO offering. I have a question for anybody. Anybody can take this. So what are your thoughts, and what's the best way? And if it should be the best way to raise funds? Who would like to go first? The security token offering.
I can go first. I think, as I said, blockchain is going to be the fifth disruptor to humankind, right? I believe that if you have a platform that can help tokenize different things, so think about a platform in about 4 or 5 years. Let's say Giampaolo or Nadia or Alice or Vikram or Alessandro and Sony have an idea. You can produce a 2-pager, send it to this platform, and this platform will have access to, let's say, 10,000 investors who can invest up to $5,000 to $10,000. So sorry, I'm using dollars. Suddenly, within 2 days, you can get, it's not crowdfunding. Let's be very clear, right? Because Alice said you can do economic interest, economic ownership, you can do revenue-based tokens, you can do a lot of stuff, right? Within 2 days or 3 days, you'll be able to know whether anyone wants to put in the capital towards this venture or not. And then you can, through smart contracts, get the full deal done and everything else. So I believe that if tokenization takes off, the disruption in private equity, the 220 model is going to go away. I mean, that's old fashioned. Waiting 9 years to get your money is going to go away. I think so the disruption to the PE and the VC world is coming fast and furious, is my opinion. Now, whether it was going to happen in 2025 or 2021 and 2022 is a question mark. That's all I'll say.
Excellent. Who wants to go next with the same question, please?
And you can criticize me too, so no worries.
Yes, I mean, other speakers, please feel free. Alice, you are on mute.
Right. I think everyone here's big fan of tokenization, but I always ask this question: why do you want to tokenize to raise funds? So as I don't know if I mentioned, but I do some lecturing at Singapore Management University on blockchain and fintech, and everyone's very curious, is this the new wave of ICOs? And I would say no, because we have to take some learnings away from that, right? If you want the ability to carry on and successfully raise for startup projects, please don't ruin it by just adding a token to a project and believing that it's just going to sell. The economics have to make sense. It's still about the fundamentals. What are you investing in? What are you getting in return for your investment? We're talking about securities here. We're not giving tokens as rewards. This is an investment, and there is an expectation of profit from this, right? So you need to do your due diligence. You need to understand the investment product. Platforms like ours are licensed. We are obligated to do all of the regulatory KYC, AML, CFT checks before we can onboard an investor, onboard an issuer. And at the same time, you have to do the financial assessment as well. Does this make sense as an offering to list on the platform? Are the economics there? Is this going to even be an attractive offering for the average person? So yeah, those are, not to mention, institutional investors. And I think one of the key things for our platform is that we're more focused on institutional quality type of investments, because we need to get them over the hurdle first in order for the adoption to occur. There's still a lot of skepticism out there about, anything digital tokens. And obviously we understand there's variation, there's different tokens. There are utility tokens, payment tokens, security tokens, but a lot of traditional mindsets out there still, if it's a digital token, we're still wary. Have you done the proper KYC and AML checks? What about theft and cybersecurity risk? All of those things. So initially, as I said, we're focusing on institutional and credit investors and institutional quality type of investment offerings, so we can get that hurdle overcome, and then perhaps offer it to a larger base of investors.
Great, thank you. Very valid points, Alice. Giampaolo, would you like to take the same question?
Yeah, and I partially have the same answers as Alice. I mean, we keep seeing as VCs too many projects or deals covered by a layer of blockchain when there was no need to insert the blockchain or a tokenization of the project per se. So again, it looks like sometimes people are mistaken, or cannot see the trees for the forest. And I couldn't agree more that there are projects that are, maybe technology oriented or even bricks and mortar, and they may not have a necessity to have the insertion of the tokenization into their venture, and it should not be included, at least in the first phase, because it only kind of muddled the waters and confuse the prospective participants and stakeholders. So I mean, I would say that this is an aspect that I would like to highlight and stress, because there's too much fat on it, I think.
Great. So in continuation of the question, I'd like to ask each of you a use case, that has successfully been delivered. Sanjay, would you like to take that first?
Yeah, I think in my initial thing, I talked about two things. I talked about Invenium and I talked about TallyX. So Invenium is the valuation using blockchain for private assets for consistency basis, where every week it runs it. So to make it moving from level 3 to level 2 assets. We're also doing 2 proof of concept on blockchain to automate the full bank loan automation processing, right? And the third thing is this full deep tier supply chain financing, which we are launching in various countries, and actually also helps in COVID, where the corporates become the center. You're moving it from the bank to the corporates. For example, today Emirates borrows at 60 basis point. It finances the first year suppliers at 160 basis point. They make 100 basis point. Now, if you can bring it into the capability we have put into place by these foremost supply chain experts in the world, if a third tier supplier comes in, usually $5 trillion never gets financed. So the third tier supplier comes in, you can tokenize everything about them, what the demand and everything else is, and then they get the buyer's credit coin with all the details in it, and hence they get funded by the buyer or by the bank at the buyer's credit, so they can get funded at 500 basis point instead of 1200 basis points. So they save money, the buyer makes money. So the full aspect of blockchain trying to create a marketplace is becoming huge. And I think that's where, and because people can believe in the immutability, and I do believe in the previous question, what Alice and what Giampaolo said, one of the reasons why blockchain got a bad name was people raised funds initially. So you need to have it regulated in some fashion. But I'm also a very firm believer that some of these blockchain capabilities will actually dispense with some of the middle parties who actually are adding, sorry to say this, very limited value. They're not even subject matter experts. So I'll leave it right there. Sorry, I'm a very controversial person. So when I speak at Harvard and anywhere else, I say what I feel, right? So
we're looking for very open and transparent views from our speakers. Thank you so much, Sanjay. Yeah. Vikram, even you mentioned that you didn't have anything to say on blockchain, but don't worry, I've got a very interesting question for you. You're mute, by the way. So Tim Draper has been a speaker on our blockchain economic forum roadshows, and he's a big supporter of Bitcoin. So what are your thoughts about investment in Bitcoin? I mean, if you can share some ideas.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of things to say on blockchain, by the way. We actually have an amazing blockchain project, which is linking all of our physical spaces, and we're essentially creating a collective nation that is going to be on the cloud, and trying to build literally like a nation with a political nation. So we've got some cool blockchain stuff going on, but it's all in the works right now. So I've got a lot of point of views on that, of course. But yeah, I mean, I think to your question on Bitcoin and Tim's point of view on Bitcoin, I mean, I can only speak to what I know of his point of view from what's out in the public. I've never had this conversation personally with him, but I definitely believe that Bitcoin is so far a winner in the space of alternative currency, which is out of the jurisdiction of central governments. And so whether it ends up being the one, we don't know, but it's clearly so far the winner, and it's exciting. I mean, I was just thinking about this on the run today, which is we're so early in this fifth era, as Sanjay mentioned. It was so early. I mean, this is like this is like when IBM was just starting. I mean, that we're like in that early stage. So we have no idea where this thing is going to lead to. But I think the thing that I'm most excited about is just sort of the freedom that this technology is going to allow us, whether it's in supply chain, disrupting supply chain, or real estate. The thing that I'm most interested in is in the reserve currency. I'm interested in the future of finance for consumers. And today I was reading a statistics that in Africa, the average age of a person in the continent of Africa is 19 years old. And I imagine in 2035 and 15 years from now, the continent that's going to supply the majority of the workforce is going to be from Africa by 2035. And so think about the financial the financial disruption that's going to have in terms of payments, in terms of just the day-to-day use cases. And it's not going to be based on old structures. It's going to be based on some sort of a new framework. And so I think there's $90 trillion of cash out there. And so Tim's prediction is that Bitcoin's going to hit $250,000. Who knows? It's kind of hard to believe, but that's what 5% of the cash that's floating around in the world today, right? So 5% of an alternative currency. I mean, I guess the math kind of makes a little bit of sense, but it does sound a bit out there. But who knows, right? But yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, Sani.
Yeah, it has indeed. Thank you, Vikram. So Alessandro, can we now hear from you a few words about Tau Dust? I mean, it's okay if you can't have a presentation. Can you tell us on a high level what's Tau Dust about? You are on mute.
Okay, sure. So, thank you. So, I'm Alessandro. I'm the COO of Tau Dust. Tau Dust was born from the concept that the blockchain has enormous potential, but he has been misused in 99% of cases. We are convinced that it can be a tool to achieve financial freedom, whether it be enterprises, startups, or both professional and retail investors. And in contrast to all ICOs and utility token offerings that don't respond to the user and investor investment in 99% of cases where you lose money, we created a tool that was established and approved by law and Malta on this is a great support, and because we are based in Malta, obviously, and that would give those who have a good ideas of accessing a market and not accessible by traditional means, and that would give those who have a good ideas and accessing the market and not accessible by traditionals, means that the same time accessible to retail and the micro retail investor to have.
Okay. Is it like a, sorry to interrupt because your voice is breaking up. So is it like a crowdfunding platform, if I understood from Alan?
A sort of crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding, because we changed the word of equity crowdfunding. To date, the equity crowdfunding has three principal problems: geographical problems, because if you wanted to invest to an equity, in a startup, and you are an investor in the same country, but with the blockchain, using the blockchain, geographical problems are eliminated. Any startup that is launched on the Taudast platform has a global visibility and can at the same time sells equities also worldwide, no longer only within its own country. The second problem is liquid assets. When investor decides to sell his equities, he can do it as and when he wants, because the tokens or blockchain representation of the equities of a startup are liquid for nature. By accessing the exchange, investor will be able to sell at the market value, exactly as a stock market. The last problem is red tape. To date, acquiring the equities implies the intervention of notaries, paperwork, taxes, etc. And all this is no more required because regulated and guaranteed by the blockchain. And so our project, with our project, we have revolutionized all this world, and
okay, great, awesome. I would like to take some questions from our speakers. Alice, do you have any question for Taudast? Any clarifications that you would have? You're on mute, Alice.
Yeah, just a question. You said you're regulated in Malta, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so for all of the projects that are listed on your platform, they would go through basically the same level of onboarding, KYC and AML standards?
Yeah, absolutely. We have an extra protocol which verifies that the user who received the token have made the KYC and are therefore identified. And I don't know if you have I answer to your question.
Yes. And so what about the, I guess, do you create the wallets directly on your web, on your platform, or do you, so I guess my question is, how do you KYC wallets that have been already created?
By the end of this year, and the platform and all the process is terminated by the end of the year.
Oh, okay. So okay, you're in the process of building it.
Yeah,
out.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious.
Thank you. Thank you, Alice. Sanjay, do you have any question for Taudast?
No, not right now. So I'd like to hear a few more things. Yeah.
Sure, excellent. Giampaolo, do you have any question for Taudast?
Not at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. So that, thank you all our speakers. That brings to the end of the session. But before we actually go offline, I'd like to ask each one of you to give some feedback about this VCTV initiative that we have from that token when we launched this in February, just after COVID-19 hit the economies. So Sanjay, what do you think about this platform? And how has it benefited you today, and how it's going to benefit others? What do you see? What are your thoughts?
So I think one can never undermine the network effect, right? And the element of what you have done is you brought few people onto this table who may have known each other before, but I've not known probably anybody. And actually, I learned from Giampaolo, Nadia, Alice, Vikram, and you also, Sony, and also from Alessandro, what he's doing with Taudast. I think it just helps us to further knowledge. I believe in compete and collaborate at the same time. I'm writing a book, which is A to A to Z to Z. So A to A is aspire to accountability, B to B. So compete, so you need to compete and collaborate at the same time, right? So I think the market environment is big enough. And as I said, Vikram said that we are in the early stages of when IBM was founded, right? And they said there's technology. What does that mean, right? And I think we are in the early stages. So we need to, as a network, get the message out, but also get the aspect that it allows trust to be built onto people on the private asset side. Having done everything on the public asset side, and I was very instrumental in getting Citibank's trust back, right? And actually, one of my backgrounds is I set up the full trade life cycle. I worked with SEBI in India to create the full capital markets, and I created the Singapore Exchange initial thing in 2000, 2001, right? I think the trust factor is the most important. I think blockchain allows trust to happen. And the more you put on blockchain, the trust happens. And I think what I've seen today with what Alice, with what Giampaolo and Vikram, you're not doing much in blockchain, but you're doing disruption, man. I believe in disruption. I'm doing disruption in energy and healthcare too. So you're doing disruption, and it's a unique way of bringing network in. He's using a facility, we're using blockchain. But the point is, if you can build trust, and what's going to happen post-COVID is, I talked about the supply chain financing to go. You can't take this many documents and go and get it notarized anymore. You have to get somehow to be trusted that this person will give me the goods and I will be paid, and that person is saying this person is going to pay it. So how do you create mutual respect? So I think networks like these foster collaboration, foster a growth of a space that is going to actually post-COVID be very instrumental in actually getting trade back to where it was. So that's my perspective on it. And democratizing alpha. I want to say this, the difference between have and have-nots is widening. That will lead to social unrest. So you need to squeeze that out. You need to bring the common people. And I know we can only bring regulated investors, but I've been talking to the SEC. If I get someone to invest $20 token into an asset, I'm not, so when the Jobs Act was written in this country, was written by my friend David Weil, which basically said, because I need to be, I'm investing a significant amount of my money, which will be locked away for 9 years, so I need to get certified and regulated, right? Now, if I'm telling someone to invest $20 into something, or $100 or $1,000, right? Sorry, I'm saying dollars. I'll take any currency you would like me to take. But you can get liquidity whenever you want. It may not happen in a year, 2 years, but in 3-4 years, I think this will be very liquid assets. The tokens will be very liquid. It will be listed elsewhere. Then there's no Reg D requirements required. There's no regulation requirement. And I've been having this discussion with the SEC commissioner. So in Invenium, we have the former SEC commissioner on our board. So we've been talking about these things as to how do we get the mindset to change? Because now I'm not asking them to provide significant assets. So Sony, long-winded answer, I know, I apologize. But networks like this allows us to share information, but also allows us to foster the forward growth of what we're trying to do, because this is what's going to be the future, in my opinion. Sorry, long-winded, apologize.
Absolutely. Okay, Sanjay, thanks for your inputs. Really appreciate it. Alice, very swiftly moving over to you. What do you think? What are your feedback?
I think I just want to echo everything Sanjay said. No, just maybe very quickly. Actually, what Vikram said about this is the early beginnings of IBM. I've said that on stage as well. It is the very early beginnings of a new technology, a new innovation, and we're one of the early adopters. And I might have been too young when IBM was created for me to get really excited, but right now I have that opportunity, and I'm extremely excited about the future.
We were all young, so.
Right. So yeah, no, I think and you know, events like this obviously help that adoption. So thanks.
Thank you, Alice. Vikram, would like to know your thoughts as well, because
yeah, no, so we are in a physical business. Like our business, it's about travel, tourism, and hospitality. So you can imagine what COVID has done to our business, right? It's basically non-existent. But what we did during the last couple of months is we learned how to do certain things. One of those things is we learned how to take 300, 400 people across the world for 3-4 days on a zero jet lag trip over 3 days to like 12 countries, and all done on Zoom, right? And that's what we had to do. So we had these programs where we were supposed to take 300 students from around the world to various different countries on these educational trips. And that didn't, of course, happen, but we took it. We did that on Zoom, and you should see the comments that people have made. I mean, these are, you know, university students laying in their bedroom, you know, like traveling to Estonia and learning about e-residency, which, by the way, you guys should all become members of. We have a space in Estonia. I'm an e-resident. I do everything electronically. I file my taxes electronically. So it's amazing. And this is like the students are running around without having to run around from their bedroom. So we had to learn how to innovate and adapt. And so this format of having these, you know, sessions it's the future. I mean, this is time travel without, you know, this time travel with sitting at home. So it's great. I enjoyed it, appreciate it, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Vikram, for joining us. So Alessandro, I'd like to ask you a question, because obviously you had some technical glitches over there, but would you like to take part in our future sessions so that you can present your, you can present well? And what do you think about this session, even though you were not able to present a lot of things? So you're on mute.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
No.
No, so my question is, would you like to
I'm sorry,
take part?
there is a thunderstorm here, and I lost my Wi-Fi connection, so I connect with my iPhone, and the connection is poor. Sorry, I don't know if you hear me. I'm really sorry.
Okay, it's okay. These are some technical glitches that you have to face with the internet during this time. Are you looking forward to these sessions in future? Okay, no worries. I mean, can you hear me? Are you looking forward to these kind of sessions in future? Like we have road shows every day, Monday to Friday, because you couldn't present today. Okay, I don't think he can hear us. It's okay. So yeah, that brings us, thank you, Alessandro. It's nothing to worry about. This brings us to the end of the session. I'd like to pass the floor to my co-moderator, Nadia, to end the session with a few words about this initiative. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. And I inspire you also to join different formats of our interaction for our VC community, which actually includes serial entrepreneurs and venture capital investors. And these are not only roadshows, speech competitions, keynotes, masterclasses, fireside chats, and Startup Leader Club discussions. So please also introduce your own formats for interaction to keep up with the pace of the time and to boost the innovation across the world, because it's a global community. We all connected here from different parts of the world, different backgrounds, industries, sectors. And I welcome you to join in an hour and a half our Startup Leaders Club panel discussion on business model pivots in the era of pandemic Series 8. And at 5:15 p.m. UK time, we'll also have a panel discussion on investments and pivots during pandemic, on supply chain and logistics. So, and I wish you all a great week, and stay healthy, and keep up with the vision of your own, in your own businesses and all your endeavors. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.